Thank you, Derek. So Sharon's question was about, is it the right time to apply? Because she's not sure yet about collaborators, although she already has a committed presenter. My thoughts on that are two things. One, it's good to go through the application to look at the questions anyway, regardless, because it will give you an idea of what kind of things we're looking for. The biggest problem with applying too early is that the advisors will not have an idea of what it is you are proposing to do as an ensemble. And if they're confused, then it will not do well. That being said, if you decide to do it this year anyway, there's nothing precluding you from applying again next year with the same project. The benefit of that is the feedback that you will get on the project and the experience of having gone through the process at least once.
I would add around the fact that you haven't identified the ensemble members, I think will be also tricky for the advisors, because particularly for the first round, they're really looking at whether the work is devised in ensemble. And in order to know if it's really ensemble, they do want to know who are the people you're creating the work with and how is it, shared in ownership as an ensemble. And so I think that will make it a little difficult as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and this isn't directly answering your question, but I'm sure other people will have questions about the other side of this, which is it too late to apply? And I will just offer that the requirement we have around the deadline for whether it's too late is that there needs to be creation work in your project left to be done at the time that we award the grant, which will be in September 2022. So if the development period ends before that, you won't be eligible. If your development period ends kind of like right around September or October, you are eligible, but it's probably a good idea to show in your application that there is still significant development work left to be done, because when the advisors look at the applications, they're asking not only is this the right project, but why now? Why is now the right time to fund this project? So showing that, the creation portion of this grant will still be important for your project, even though it's nearing the end of the development period. And it looks like there was a follow-up question from Isabel, unless Keita or Mina want to add more about that.
Yeah, I did have one thing to add. Sharon, you mentioned that you have presenting partners. For the creation and touring, the only requirement we have is that you have at least one development partner, and the presenting partner is great if you have it, but it's not a requirement.
That's even more perfect for my question, actually. I am sorry to say that I did not review the webinar, and I will do so right after this. But for the development partner, can you talk about what role that person has? Is it financial? Is it somebody who is, how deeply involved should they be in, or what are you looking for that development partner?
We didn't decide who was going to do the order of the questions. This is Keita. A development partner is someone outside of your organization, another organization that provides significant development resources to your project. Now, those resources can be money, they can be residency space, they can be promotional assistance, they can be tour planning. They can also be a nonprofit organization that you're working with to reach a particular community. And I use as an example, Sandglass Theater, when they applied for Degenerations, which is about dementia. They worked with a lot of memory care facilities, and they provided them with training and access to stories through their working with the folks in their facilities. And then also a follow-up network of other mental memory care facilities who were facing some of the same issues. And they then were later able to help them tour the project. So it could be any number of those. It could be, in the case of at least one project, relationship with a reservation, right? It really depends on the needs of your project, but it should be a strong project, a strong relationship, because they will look to see that. But it's beyond just finances. In fact, mere financial investment is generally not considered a strong relationship.
Yeah, this is Derek speaking. I don't have too much to add to that. I think it's really, every project is different. The needs of every project is different. So I think it's about kind of looking at your application and questioning how can I make partnerships to make my project more successful? Where are the gaps in the experience of our team, or what our team can accomplish? And using partners to kind of fill out your application in that way, because the advisors are looking to see a project that is in a place to be as successful as possible. And yeah, partners are a great way to flesh out your application in that way.
I see 2 hands raised and a couple in the chat. So I will read Michael's, then we'll go to a hand, then we go back to the chat and go to a hand. Okay. From Michael Kennedy, new question: is a multimedia project that springs from and includes devised theater appropriate for this proposal? Mina, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I would love to know a little more about what the project is. I think being that it is a theater grant, it does have to have a prominent theater component to it. I think that there could be multimedia kind of projects that surround that piece, but I feel like it does have to kind of center the devised theater portion. I don't know what the team thinks about that.
We have had projects, this is Kita, sorry. We have had projects that have combined multimedia and devised theater, but again, like Mina said, the devising theater part is very prominent in what is happening.
Yeah, and the other thing that I just like to share around this question is we do have a piece of criteria, one of our criteria for making the grants that I had open a second ago and just lost. But it's that we support work that contributes to the cultural and aesthetic diversities of today's theater. So we are looking for work, some of the work that we fund is pushing the boundaries of what theater is. It doesn't need to be traditional theater, but it needs to have some kind of theatrical element. And we deliberately don't define theater because it's so dependent on the project and the culture, and there are so many different definitions of what theater is. And we do want to be receptive to your definitions of it, but it needs to be theatrical.
Would it be okay if I ask a quick follow-up question? So if we are looking at creating a devised theater piece and then filming it, which would allow a broader reach, And when it was shown in other areas, there was also a live theater performance to go along with the filmed devised theater piece. Does that sound like it fits the grant? Am I making?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Lana?
Hi, this is Lana. So I am working with a theater ensemble. I'm not part of the ensemble, but I am a death doula and I have a performing background as well. So I'm kind of we're coming together and creating something together that's about like death and the climate crisis. And so the organization that I founded, and it's not just me though, was going to be one of our development partners. But because I am kind of joining and really devising with the ensemble, can that be? Does that make sense? It's convoluted in my head.
That is a tough one. I'm trying. I think probably we would need a lot more conversation about it. And I think for yours in particular, you might want to sign up for an office hours. So we
Okay.
can actually
Okay.
go through the details with you and make sure that you have what you need.
Okay, great. I'll do that. Thank you.
From Caroline, my organization is considering applying for the Creation and Touring Grant. The project we're focusing on has been created and previously presented, but is not fully evolved yet. There are still parts that need to be devised, expanded on, developed. Is expanding on a project continuing creation that will involve a new collaboration eligible? Any of us could take that one.
I can take a first stab at it. This is Derek. So I would say it depends. There are certain projects that we have supported that really are kind of reinventing themselves for each tour site, or the work is really growing and changing in a way where we recognize, or the advisors who pick the panel, who pick the grantees, are recognizing that there is significant development work still to happen on this project. The project is still growing into itself and changing in a significant way. And we have funded projects like that have already premiered. It would be harder to receive this grant if the work was finished and you were kind of just making little tweaks for the performance, for each performance. But really, when the advisors are looking at this, there's no criteria that says that the work can't have premiered already. What they want to see is how you're going to be using the development portion of this grant. And they want to see that, again, this is the right time to fund this project.
Yeah, this is Mina. Just to add that, yeah, basically it just requires for you to write in the application that you still have substantial development work to be done on this work. And it will be really up to you to describe to the panelists what that means to you and why it's so relevant right now for the piece. I was going to say one more thing, but I don't remember. So I will say it when I remember it.
Is it Beretta?
Hi, it's Barrett. Thank you so much for hosting this. And I just want to say I'm landing in a little late, so I'm sorry if I'm asking a question that you might have already answered. I'm a curator and artist working on a project that I've commissioned a theater company and enlisted a number of co-collaborating, developing partners on a project. And I'm wondering about the definition of ensemble here in this question. If if that means that it's not an ensemble, if it's lots of different kinds of collaborators happening, and if I'm functioning within the project as a commissioning curator for the population of people of this project. And then I have I can get to the second part of my question after that, if I could just kind of work through the definition of ensemble there. And by the way, the theater company that is leading the theatrical part of it, because there's a community engagement side that a lot of the partners in the project are doing or responsible for, to create conversation with community or organizers. So the theater company that I'm working with they are creating the theatrical part of the project as a collaborating ensemble within the ensemble of the bigger project. God, I hope that made sense. So.
I can see that. This is Kita. I can see that as an ensemble. I think the biggest question you're going to face around the ensembleness of it is going to be working together to create a body of work. The community engagement part will be exciting. I think the collaboration between an already established theater ensemble and you is also going to be really exciting. I think it's just that's really where there might be some confusion around the project. But I think that if you have looked at the questions, you'll see it'll help you frame that in a way that I think would be, it sounds actually very exciting. So I think it would be worthwhile. And it also, again, just as I said before, we do have office hours and we're really open to discussing. Yeah, Mina?
Yeah, this is Mina. Barrett and I have a call already, so we'll talk through this together.
Thank you so much. So that's a little bit of a relief because we are actively developing the work ground up together. So yeah, that's really good to know. And then the other half is another defining question of about how you define tour. Just because this is a project that deals with displacement and gentrification as the broad brush stroke of what the work is. And so where we already have partners in a couple of different states, and when we do the work in one place, it takes on the characteristics and histories of that place. And then when we do the work again in another place, it becomes a long arc of development again, relative to the locality of that new place. So it's not creating this sort of set theatrical performance and then representing it elsewhere. It's a redevelopment each time we do it. Does that fit into your definition of tour? Or because we understand tour as you're picking it up and putting up the same thing elsewhere, you know? So it's just want to check that.
Yeah, this is Mina. Yes, we consider that very much a tour. And we have supported work that does that. And oftentimes for those projects, when they fill in the development timeline and the touring timeline, some of them overlap. So like the end of the tour is like the end of their development period. Like that has happened as well, because they are continuously developing their work for each location that they go to. So that process never ends. Like it's just integrated into the way that they tour. So that is something that we have supported, and yes, that's a tour.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
This is Kita. I'm going to piggyback on that because there is a question in the chat about presenting a work in Puerto Rico, and can we consider touring to present it in another theater in another town on the island as a tour? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. especially right now when travel is so very difficult. We often refer to it as sharing versus touring, and we recognize difficulties. There are places that we consider a tour all unto itself. If you are trying to do a show and do something in Alaska, you're traveling by plane to get anywhere. So obviously that would be a tour. But also we are looking at what are the various ways that people are sharing their work now within this next phase of the pandemic. And I would say that would definitely be considered part of a tour. I think Denise, you're next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Denise Gray. I just have a couple of questions. One would be, can a developing partner be a religious institution? And the other part of that is, can a developing partner, is it acceptable if say that developing partner is also is a theater company that produces, and but they can help you in some way with spaces and things like that, but they may also be interested in this grant, independently of you. Is that acceptable? And then I have one more after that. I just don't want to lump them all up.
I can give a very easy answer to all of those questions, which is yes, all of those things are totally fine. And I think we have done all of those things before. So
Okay.
Yes,
Cool.
thumbs up for all of it.
Then very briefly, my other question would be, this is a piece that I conceived a few years ago, and it has been in a development process for a very long time. The composer who passed away during COVID, a number of things happened. We had to bring in there's other writers that have come in, but it's not necessarily being developed just by actors, which is my traditional definition for ensemble. So I spoke with someone earlier on your team a while back that had thought that yes, it was eligible, but I'm here today to see if it is or not. And maybe I haven't given all the details properly.
Yes, it would still be eligible. It is, we acknowledge very long periods of development. And especially right now when things have been disrupted so much due to COVID, we know that everybody's development process has been extended far beyond what they ever thought it would be.
Yes.
So I would say yes, it's still.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I think I have Leese next.
Hi, thanks. Similar to Barrett's project, ours travels to a site and then investigates that place, and we build the project based on the interviews and the material that we're collecting in that place. The question has to do with development versus presenting partners, in that there's a sort of blurry line in sometimes with the presenter, because they are both development partner and presenting partner, and then we have secondary or tertiary partners in each place through which we conduct interviews. So we might partner with a cultural center, for example, to host a site, one of the interview sites. So should we? But the presenter is often providing. They are providing the rehearsal space, housing when we're there a few months earlier doing the interviews. Would you prefer that we categorize the presenter, developer partner as presenter, and then just the smaller local partners through which we interview and through which we offer workshops to bring community members into the project, call them development partners.
I can go. This is Mina. You can list it in both places. So if there is a partner who is serving both as development partner and presenting partner, you can list them in both sections, that they are a development partner and then they're also
Okay.
the presenting partner. And then you can list all the other development partners alongside the development partner section. For the inquiry round, there's limitation of number, but for the final application, you can add as many as you want of all the partners. So there is no limitation.
Okay, thank you.
It looks like there's a question in the chat from Michael Kennedy. Does the theater ensemble have to be a group that has worked together multiple times, or can it be an ensemble that's created for the project? And I'll again refer to our definition of ensemble that we have on our website, which is a group of two or more people committed to working together over time to develop a distinct practice and body of work. So in order to be an ensemble, there needs to be an intention of creating multiple pieces of work together. So I would say most of the time it's an ensemble that has worked together on projects in the past, but it can also be a project or an ensemble that has the intention to work with each other on future projects. So if you're coming together just to create one piece of work, it probably would not be eligible. But if you've worked together in the past or you have the intention to keep working together in the future, then it would be.
This is Kita. One of our very first grants was a new ensemble who they had committed to creating a trilogy together. And we funded the first one and did not actually fund the second two, although they actually really didn't come back for funding, yeah, so we knew from the beginning, the advisors knew that they had made this commitment to making this work together. Mina has dropped in the chat the link for scheduling office hours. You can also find that on the National Theater Project Creation and Touring Grant page. Okay, let's see. I don't see any raised hands or any other questions in the, oh, there. Ramin?
Yes, hi, my name is Ramin Torkan. So I have two questions to ask. Actually, one is related to Michael Kennedy original question, and that is, how do you define more specifically, what is the criteria for a theatrical component? If a story is told through music, dance, and integrated multimedia and interactive technology, would that define, as long as we are telling a cohesive story, a very specific story, would that define as being a theatrical piece, or does it need something more than that?
We don't define theater. This is because we have a very broad view of what devising may be. And we recognize that that may be different for a lot of folks. As Derek said, we're looking at pushing, at the different diversities of the theater field, which means that in the past we have supported new musical, new opera, dance theater, film theater collaboration. We're really trying to not pigeonhole people into a box of what is theater. Because certainly within my culture, an indigenous culture, you would not separate theater from dance and music. And so we're trying to be as broad, but what you would have to say is, what is the theatrical experience of this piece?
Mhm.
I think that's really what they would be looking for.
Wonderful. I have another question. Again, it's a kind of a follow-up question. So for the first initial proposition that we are sending, aside from some sort of a kind of a intent from a developing partner, is there something else is required to be provided, like a much more kind of a structured kind of a financial or exchange that needs to be submitted along with the application for the proposition?
We're all looking for our unmute buttons. No, this is the preliminary application, the inquiry phase. We might require more specific information at the next round, the final stage. And that's in part because we don't want you to have to do too much work at this point when you may not know what that is.
Mhm.
And so, but at the final application, we can ask you to be more specific.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
And this is Mina. To add, we don't really kind of manage or regulate how you are in relationship with your development partner. So you don't have to submit like an agreement or anything. That is up to you as artists to have that relationship with the development partner. And of course, we're here, the team is here to support you if you have any questions around that relationship, but we don't like manage that relationship.
Looks like we have another question in the chat. Is it okay to have collaborators who are non-US based and not American citizens? And the answer is yes, that is absolutely okay. The ensemble needs to be based in the United States, which gets complicated, I think, especially right now where people are kind of collaborating from all over the place in a way that wasn't happening as much a couple of years ago. Not that it wasn't happening, but you know, we don't have I don't think we have a strict definition of what constitutes being based in the United States, but yeah, maybe Kita or Mina have more insight on that. As far as partners, we do require having at least one US-based partner. But if you have one partner that's based in the US, you could have 3 others that are based elsewhere. Just one of them needs to be US-based. And this grant is to support US touring. So when actually we're giving out the touring subsidies, the touring allocations, those all do need to go to US-based organizations.
This is Mina. To add to that, I think the ensemble, though, I'm sorry, my internet's not great. The ensemble the majority or more than half do need to be US based is a hard thing to describe, I think, because you can still apply to this grant if you're a permanent resident, if you have legal status in the US. You don't have to be American. I am not, and I'll be, I can apply too. But I think when it becomes that, there have been in the past applications where the ensemble makeup was majority, I think, I don't remember, Kita, Irish or Scottish peoples, and then there were some American-based, US-based artists that got a little tricky because it is still a US-based ensemble, which means kind of majority or more. So, and I am adding the complexity that with the pandemic and the use of the internet, this is becoming a lot more difficult to identify. But that's kind of how we have been looking at this requirement.
And I would just add that if you have questions about that, if you're not sure, I would definitely recommend signing up for an office hours so that we can talk about your specific situation.
Okay, I'm seeing Sarah's question in the chat. Can you elaborate on the eligibility as it relates to projects that have educational elements and will tour for student audiences at performing arts centers? Is the project eligible as long as there are performances for general audiences as well? One of the things that we have to, because we have such limited funds, we don't support work that is created primarily for children and youth theater. That being said, it is okay to have the educational component. And that is absolutely fine. But your primary focus cannot be youth and family theater. And that is in part a restriction that was placed on us by the funder for this. If, again, feel free to email us, feel free to sign up for office hours, because a lot depends on how you perceive the work and how you explain the work. If it is primarily youth and theater family work, then it's probably not going to be eligible. But if that is a component, and I'm thinking of a project that we had, we supported a few years ago that was around bullying in schools. And there was an educational component to this, but it was primarily aimed at adults who were not understanding what the issues were. And so while there was some schoolwork, there was a lot of work outside in the community. And so that, again, that balance is very individual. And I would encourage you to talk to us and figure which side of the balance you're on.
And it looks like we have another question in the chat from Carly. And it's going back to the question of how you define touring. Would you consider a virtual showing of the production as part of the tour if COVID were to prohibit an in-person show? And the answer is yes. In the last couple of years, we've changed all of our criteria and questions to clarify that the performances can be virtual or in person. Keita or Mina, do you have anything to add to that?
I've seen some really great virtual performances, and I have seen some really bad virtual performances, but they all still are performances. And so we're trying to be generous in this time of COVID, to be as generous as we possibly can.
Doesn't look like there are any other questions. We'll give you all a couple more minutes to think of things, but while you all are thinking of questions, I just want to reiterate that we are super receptive to office hour conversations, or if none of the times that we have listed for office hours work for you, please email Keita or I, and we are happy to find time outside of the listed times. We are easy to get in touch with, and we also respond to email. Our phone numbers are on the NEFA website as well.
We still have a few, this is Keita, we still have a few minutes. If there's anything else, we could also give you back 15 minutes of your day, which is, thank you, Lana.
Okay. I guess we can end a few minutes early then. Thank you all so much for calling in, and yeah, definitely hoping to see some of you in office hours and excited to read your applications.
There is one question that just came up, which actually, Derek, I'm going to toss to you. It's about the videos.
Yes, the video samples. So with the application, we do require that you submit 1 to 2 work samples. The work samples, the combined time should be no longer than 3 minutes. So if you can have a 1-minute clip and a 2-minute clip, but you can't have 2 3-minute clips. And with those, we're pretty open-ended about what we will allow. The one thing that we will not accept is video montages. And the reason is we just honestly have found that it's not a great way to demonstrate what the work is going to look and feel like most of the time. When people have submitted those, it has historically not benefited the applications that submit samples like that. I think with the work samples, it's a really good place to fill in gaps in the application. So if there are things that you think might not translate into words, it's a place that you can fill that in. And there's kind of different approaches. So there are lots of ensembles that will provide work samples that show previous work. And then people will also submit, work in progress showing some of the work that they are currently creating. And both of those are fine. Both of those are helpful in different circumstances. If you're submitting work, previous work samples, or samples of previous works, I should say, we do ask, I think it's within the last 4 years. The exact time frame is on our website, but and it's good to question, why are you showing this? How does this connect to the work that you're trying to get funded? Because when the advisors are watching the work samples, they're trying to get an idea of what the work is going to be. So if it's a clip from a previous work, it should reflect on that. It should reflect the new work in some way. And we have, there's a field also for you to give a description of the work sample and why you're submitting it. So you can include that information.
And this is Mina. For some of you, the advisors have never seen your work before this. So this is the opportunity for them to see your work. So they do look at the work sample very intentionally. And there's many questions about this. Is it problematic if it cuts from one part of the video to a little later in the scene? Derek?
I think that's okay. I wouldn't have that happen 5 times. It should feel like you're watching a cohesive performance. I think one kind of rule of thumb would be if you have kind of like audio that is like a song, and then you have video that's just cut from different parts of the show and put behind the audio, that would definitely be a montage. I think in general, it's good to have the original audio with the video. We definitely have had work samples that show different parts of a performance, but I would not recommend having something where it's like 30 seconds and then skips to later and then skips to later. That's just not going to give the advisors the context that they need to really understand what they're looking at.
Thanks, Derek. Sarah asks, similarly, is dance on camera considered a montage because it's edited together? Would you prefer footage from a live stage work? Live stage work, yes, is preferred, yes. Next is Denise. Do you accept MP3 of music or excerpt of script?
So I know, this is Derek, we have definitely accepted MP3s in the past, and that is okay. I would say it is probably preferable to use a video if you have one. But if you don't have one and you think an MP3 is the best way to communicate, what the work or whatever you're trying to communicate about the work. We will accept that. We would not accept the script though. It should be a time-based medium that's 3 minutes or less.
This is Mina. The script can be shared in the final round as like a additional like material document if you choose to submit that. But for the work sample, it does need to be some kind of media. If you are submitting music though for the work sample, it is highly recommended that you submit something that is video as well. So a video work sample and MP3, which some folks have done who are doing work that is music based, and they wanted to show the theatrical side, but also wanted to show some of the song samples that they've been working on. So then they have sent in the MP3, but it should be both if you are submitting the MP3s.
And just, I see this follow-up question, is a video sample for this first segment or of the applications, and we do it for both. So for the first segment, we have a 3-minute limit. For the final round, there's a 5-minute limit. But yes, we do require work samples at both stages.
This is Kita. Sarah, your hand is up. Is that a separate question or have we already answered?
Hi, sorry. It's sort of a follow-up of the question about the dance on camera work. So the company that I'm working with, we just did a virtual experience of a piece that we were creating. So it was a dance on camera version of the piece, but we're now extending it into a full evening length of work for a live performance. So we've been submitting, like if we were to submit, we would probably want to include part of the dance on camera portion since it will be expanded on for the future tour. But we should also give, I'm assuming, like a previous live work sample so you can see the continuation of a piece. Is that ideal?
I think of it as a way to show the advisors what it is you intend to do.
Okay.
So by the dance on camera, I'm assuming if it had been in a, if it were a film, it would be like a 3-camera cut so that it is one continuous piece.
Yeah, the dance on camera wasn't specifically like one continuous piece shot from different angles. It was a bunch of movement phrases from different angles that were then edited together. So it's not necessarily one 6-minute movement phrase that's continuous, but it does show kind of where we're going with the overall piece, if that makes sense.
I think we would have to have a conversation.
Okay. All right.
To figure that out.
Thank you.
Also, for folks who are hung up on the work sample, if you want to, feel free to email me. And if you have the work sample, you can even send it to me and I can take a look and say, this seems okay, this doesn't seem okay. And I can put my email address in the chat.
This is Kita. Also, in the recorded webinar, we do talk about, the methods, the ways of uploading and all of that. And I encourage you to take a look at that. It's also in the application because the reason for the 3-minute work sample was because the advisors were searching out work online when they were unfamiliar with an artist. And this is the opportunity for you to show them what you want them to see and not what they might find on the web. So please take a look at those things, especially remembering things like the advisors will be looking at the samples on their own devices, right? So lighting counts, visibility counts, all of that counts, so that they can see what it is you want them to see.
Okay, and we are coming up right on 3 o'clock, and we do have a 3 o'clock hard ending time, unfortunately. But, like we said, it's easy to get in touch with us if you have more questions, and we would be happy to talk to you. So feel free to email, call, sign up for office hours, whatever works best for you. Okay. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you all. Wonderful informational session. Take care. Thank you.